Hi, Chaplains. Jim Duncan here. Want to share a few things regarding chaplaincy that's coming up. Many of you have called. I've gotten phone calls from a number of you, and the question seems to have the same flavor to it. When are we going back? And I can't answer that. We're somewhere between phase 3 and phase 4. I'm grateful that our governor has opened things up coming up this Friday, so maybe by the time you see this, some things will already change. But I can tell you that what's not changing at this point is any kind of volunteer ministry going into our prisons and institutions. That's still going to be a slow process. And you saw it mentioned by the governor just recently. I'm very grateful for our governor's leadership. He's been a servant leader, and he's doing this from a situational platform that you're not in charge when a pandemic is steering the bus, and we're all on the bus together trying to get through this. So I thought that I would share a few things because as you have called and asked when and how we're going to go back in, and some of you want to know what will it look like, what will it be like. I am very encouraged by one of the inmates that was tested positive, went back into his mod after he was totally cleared and given a clean bill of health, and the inmates in the mod cheered his return. Now, you would have thought there might be some fear, and what does the medical community in the institution know what they're doing, and all these kinds of things, but his colleagues that are also halted cheered his re-entry into the mod, and that just really encouraged my heart. Now, what will it look like? Well, some people are calling this the new normal. I've tried to avoid that because I do believe that there is a lot new, and it's going to change some things. It's going to change you and I. We're going to have some different elements into our own spiritual life too. Every time God shelters us, when we come out the other end, things change, and sometimes we just need to get a true north compass setting that changes us. So I'm encouraged, whatever God is doing, I'm encouraged. I like you, many of you have probably seen David Jeremiah's sermon on sheltering and what it looks like when God brings us out. It's very encouraging, and I encourage you to look at that. But it's true, scripturally, when God brings his people through a time of sheltering, things change. And so I'm even looking forward to that, and I'm ready to embrace that. One change is even for our seniors, having been forced to use Zoom and Microsoft Teams and telehealth, and I've even joined TikTok. I don't really know too much about it, but I've already explored it and used it a little bit. And so some of those things that change me. Other things that change is our ear gets a little better tuned to what God is saying. I've been encouraged by that. I've been encouraged by some of the networking and some of the connectivity that we've had that is happening. It's encouraging. Now, Paul says, on more than one occasion, I long to see you. And sometimes he ends his writing to the epistles, the prison letters, and he says, I long to see you, I long to come to you. And what he's doing is he's keeping that connectivity to them even while he's in prison. And he writes it's probably him writing to Hebrews 10:25, a text that you hear all the time, and that is to not neglect the meeting together as some are accustomed or in the habit of doing, but to encourage each other. We do it to encourage each other. I like what 2 Timothy 4:21 it says, and I was just talking to this with another minister, do your utmost to come to me before winter. And about 8 verses prior to that, he says what to bring, and he says who to bring, and he says Luke is with me, and that's when he reaffirms Mark and brings it back. But here's the whole thing of 2 Timothy 4 is the end of it. And he does this in most of his letters. He affirms the people around him, and then he says, I long to see you. When I come to you on my way to Spain. Love it when he says it, because he never got there, but he anticipated that he would go and that he would stop and that he would see people. You see, we need ministry with skin on it. Digital is great. It's a tool. It's not the end all. I'm a firm believer that the Bible knows nothing of solitary religion. And whenever I hear somebody say, I don't need the church, or I don't need accountability, and I don't need all that, I just need God. Oh, that scares me. And no place do we see it more than when we fulfill Jesus' teaching in Matthew to visit, what he says, when I was in prison, you visited me. And perhaps that in a microcosm is a very core of why we need to get together, because nobody loves you more than when you walk into a prison and they see you coming and they know you're going to speak into their life. And then every time when you get ready to leave, to a person, our volunteers tell me they hear it all the time, and I know I hear it. Thank you for coming. You see, God has designed us to need relationship building. And we don't function well unless we have relationship, unless ministry has skin on it. And one of the things, I'm totally convinced of this, one of the things that is most important in ministry to each other and with each other and why we do it in community is accountability. And in fact, I was just taking note of this book that was sent to us. I made mention of this, Get Out for Good by Scott Strode. And one of the whole chapters that he talks about in here is accountability. Another thing he talks about in depth is the church. And he talks about finding a good church, a good place to worship. And I do believe that that is critical. Some people are worried about what church is going to look like when this is all ending. And I can't pretend to predict the future. I'm not that prophetic, but maybe a bit visionary. Things are going to be different. And some of the pastors, most of the chaplains are also pastors. So I'm speaking to you, and I can see you and think of your name right now. You're coming to my mind that you kind of put on a chaplaincy hat when you go to prison, and then you also have your pastoral hat. And I think most of you don't draw a salary from chaplaincy. You do it because you love to do it. You draw your salary from the church. And you're wondering, what's this going to look like when we start coming back together? My mother says, I just got to hug my pastor. She really longs for that interaction with her church body and her pastor. So will it be, can we just totally end the digital delivery and go analog as it would be, ministry with flesh on it? I doubt it. I think because there's two kinds of opinions. Some people say we're opening too fast. Some people say we're going too slow. Some people say we should have never shut down. There's all kinds of different opinions. But when we come together, we're going to have to lay those things aside. There will be some differences of opinion. Some people will hover over their children and protect them a little bit more and maybe be slow to come back. Others will just come on back in as if nothing happened, and they'll want to give you a big hug. Well, we're all going to have to learn to get along and recognize that some are going to re-enter slower than others. And it's going to be a long time for some to give you a handshake, let alone a hug. And we're going to have to learn to be patient and wait for total recovery, because some people are just going to recover faster than others. So I don't think digital is going away anytime soon. And some people were doing it before this happened. And so some people will continue it maybe for good. Maybe that's the new change and shift that we're going through, is that we'll always be providing something online. Many of you have said you're getting reports from people watching online from all over the place, because now it's gone global. You can be out at sunny Connect, there you go, Dwayne, and be ministering to some of the people that you've ministered in the past to in Africa. And maybe you were already doing that, but this has caused you to pick it up a bit and maybe have a more online presence, as I have done and others. And we're going to continue to do that. We're working on doing some more things, more Zoom with some of our chaplains, some of our primary chaplains. So I don't think it's either or. I think it's both. And certainly for inside the institution, we're working on that. Our goal and our end game right now is to get more service online and find a way to provide it and bring it into the institution. So that's what we're doing. Hey, I covet your prayers. Pray for those that are halted. Pray for those in the institution. And let's believe that God has an answer. It's a global answer. He's going to get all the glory. God bless you.